So like a week ago, the NBA trade deadline happened, and obviously the huge James Harden for Ben Simmons trade happened, and even the CJ McCollum to the Pelicans trade happened, which are all big trades, bigger than this trade. But those trades really made this trade go under the radar. And the trade I'm talking about is the trade between the Washington Wizards and the Dallas Mavericks. And in that move, it had Kristaps Porzingis going to the Washington Wizards and Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans going to the Mavericks. And in my honest opinion, I think the Washington Wizards absolutely robbed the Mavericks, and in today's video I'm just going to be explaining why. Before we get into the video, I ask you to drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content. Also, if you want to go 3,000 subscribers, also drop a comment on my video as I do respond to all of my comments, and play that intro. But first, we gotta talk about what the Washington Wizards gave up in this trade. And honestly, I don't think they gave up that much. They gave us Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans, basically in exchange for Kristaps Porzingis. I don't think that's that much because, yeah, Spencer Dinwiddie has been a solid player in the past, but he hasn't even been good at all this season. Although he's averaging 13 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists, which sounds like solid numbers, he's one of the most inefficient players in the NBA, and it's not even close. He's shooting 37% from the field and 31% from 3. He's basically a walking brick. He also just hasn't been this good year at all. He's been a below average point guard. You could argue he's been a below average NBA player. Honestly, I don't think he's gonna help the Mavericks too much. At this point, you could argue he's an below average NBA player because him being that inefficient can't be a positive to the team, especially when you realize that his defense is average at best. I know a lot of people think he could be like the second ball handler alongside Luka Doncic, but honestly, he's just not that good of a player, and if he was definitely not helping the Wizards win any type of games, I don't think he's going to help the Mavericks win any type of games. Also, apparently a lot of players in the Wizards locker room were not messing with him that much. They were ignoring him in the locker room when he was trying to motivate them. I don't know if that's their problem or his problem, but regardless, he had to get traded. So getting rid of him and getting a player like Kristaps Porzingis is definitely amazing. He was not helping them win games. He's not the point guard they need to become a better team alongside Bradley Beal. So getting rid of him is not big of a deal at all. And if we're being honest, it's basically the same thing with Davis Bertans. He's been absolutely dreadful this season. Ever since he got that big contract, he hasn't been able to shoot to save his life. The only reason he was in the NBA and getting minutes was because he was apparently one of the best three-point shooters in the league. Guy who can make countless of difficult threes, can space the floor out at an elite level. This season, he's been one of the worst shooters in the league as he's shooting less than 32% from 3. He's also shooting less than 40% from the field. Absolutely terrible. I don't see a world where he just randomly shoots as good as he did before he got that contract after joining the Mavericks. Bertans is only good at shooting, and he's not even able to hit wide open shots. In my opinion, the only thing that he could maybe give the Mavericks is be a guy who defenses will respect from 3, because no matter how bad he's shooting, I still feel like the defense is going to watch him on the perimeter and not leave him wide open. But if they do force him to shoot it, it is unlikely he'll make it from what we've been seeing. He's just not that good. He's also a horrible defender, so getting rid of him is not that bad for the Wizards. He definitely wasn't helping them when you realize he's only playing 50 minutes a game. Honestly, the two main guys they traded for Porzingis, I don't think any of those guys are helping the Wizards win any type of games, so I honestly don't think it's a big deal. Honestly, they traded 2 below average NBA players, and of course, some of those guys at their best can be really good role players in the league, some of the best role players in the league, because we've seen them do that in the past. But I just don't think they're going to do that for the Mavericks, and they weren't doing it for the Wizards, so they had to go. But maybe on the Mavericks, in a new change of scenery, they can play how they used to. And at the point, I don't think it's a bad move for the Wizards to move on from them. To talk about what the Wizards received in this move, basically all they got was Kristaps Porzingis and a second-round pick. The second-round pick is whatever, but obviously Kristaps Porzingis is the main part of this deal. I actually think they improved a lot with this because, as I said, the two guys they traded are below-average NBA players who were not really helping them at all. Those guys are probably more negatives than positives, and they traded that that for a guy who's a borderline all-star level player. I know Kristaps Porzingis had a lot of people on his head after the playoffs and things like that, but he's actually underratedly been really solid this season. He's averaging 19 points and 8 rebounds. He's really improved on the defensive side of the floor. So first of all, talk about what Kristaps Porzingis provides on offense. He's a guy who could actually create his own shot outside of Bradley Beal, a guy who could get you a bucket in the post. That is something this team kind of needs because they're really depending on guys like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Rui Hachimura to be big time like playmakers and guys who can hit difficult shots, and that's simply not what those guys are best at. And I'm not gonna act like Kristaps Porzingis is like the best creator in the world because he's not amazing, but he's better than anyone else on this roster outside of Bradley Beal, and it just adds more like options to their offense. Porzingis is also a guy who could give you 20 points on solid efficiency. That's something neither of the two players they traded could do. Porzingis is also someone who draws a lot of attention from the defense because although he's having one of his worst three-point shooting seasons, the defense is still going to respect him. He's also shooting solid in the mid-range area, so when he's just on the court, he's someone the defense is very worried about. Of the other two guys they traded about, no one was really worried about Davis Bertans with the way he was shooting, and no one was really worried about Spencer Dinwiddie with his crazy inefficiency. So adding a guy who could give you 20 points on solid efficiency for like some below average players who were not helping you is definitely a win in my opinion, especially when you realize both of those below average players were overpaid. And yes, I am aware that Kristaps Porzingis is also one of the most overpaid players in the league, probably more overpaid than all of those guys. But I think I'd rather have just one bad contract rather than two. But anyways, let's talk about the other side of the floor on defense. He can help them on defense because he's actually became one of the best and most intimidating shot blockers in the league. Before, he was a borderline defensive liability, but at this point in his career, he's transformed himself to actually be a really good defender. Sure, he's not as good as guarding guards one-on-one, and he's not the most amazing pick-and-roll defender in the league and stuff like that, but he actually has really improved, and I wouldn't say he's terrible. At this point, I feel like he's a positive on defense because of the way he protects the rim. Is better than nearly anyone else in the league besides like Rudy Gobert, Miles Turner, guys like that. That definitely has values because the Wizards are one of the worst defenses in the league. They could use a guy exactly like him. This move definitely helps them out on both sides of the floor. I'm not saying the Wizards are title contenders trading for Porzingis, but he can help them make a push for the playoffs and maybe even help them get out the first round. Who knows? But before this trade, the Wizards probably weren't even going to make the playoffs, but now it's looking like they could be really good. This move was very stupid for the Mavericks. They traded an all-star level guy for two below average players who have been struggling this season, and both of those guys are on bad contracts. And sure, when you look at it at face value, those two guys like at their best look like guys who could fit the Mavericks system because Davis Bertans a really good shooter, which is something the Mavericks should be able to use, and Dinwiddie's a guy who can handle the ball and play make, which is something they have really needed for a couple of years. But at this point, I think they definitely are a worse team after this trade. So the Washington Wizards are definitely huge winners, and it's not even close. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Let me know whether or not you think the Wizards won this trade. Drop a like on this video, help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content. Also, if you want to go with 3,000 subscribers. Also, drop a comment on this video as I do respond to all of my comments. And play that intro.